welcome back to the True North Life Homestead. My name is Jillian and I'm showing you guys my garden today. I'm going to do a little bit of a walkthrough. I posted a couple days ago on social media that I have a weed-free, water-free, no dig, no till, no nothing garden that just plants and makes food, which is very true, but I had a lot of questions about how it came together. So I'm going to cover that in this video today. It's going to rain for the next couple of days, so I'm just going to turn this off. Don't need it. This isn't the greatest part of the garden, but these are trellised watermelons, cantaloupe, and then I've got cucumbers and squash down there. I haven't really been in pretty much any of these beds yet this year. Almost ready to start harvesting. My first watermelons ever, which I'm super excited for. I've got 5 or 6 of them in here. And for the most part, they've been trellised up. Of course, there's a couple of stragglers that haven't quite made it, but we're gonna actually get some watermelon out of it, which is an adventure we haven't had to take on yet. Oh, I see a bell pepper. Snacking bell pepper right there. I did grow like these ones from seed. I don't know if you can see those peppers in there, but we started most of them from seed. These two here and the one on the end I planted, transplanted from the garden center because my other ones got chopped down by something. So we had to replace them because otherwise they wouldn't produce enough fruit in the time that we have here in Canada. That's not bad though. This is my water. Well, I don't have to water, I don't have to weed. I basically just plant and come out here and harvest some food. Got our peas here, sugar snaps, and I love growing these guys, they're so good. I'll take you guys around, kind of show you what I've done. First thing that I decided when we moved into our homestead was that I wanted a large garden, and I think I've kind of done that. I've got a little bit more to do here for sure, and I've got some garden beds that are behind me as well that you can't see on camera, as well as an orchard and a berry patch. It's all kind of coming together. But today I'm going to show you the main garden here, which is what I'm standing in, which is my pride and joy, really. It's the thing that I really do love to show off every year, and I like to show all the produce that comes out of it because it is just absolutely stunning. As well as sharing it with the local food banks is something that I love to do. But how did it all come together? So, first thing I want to talk about is the raised beds themselves. You can see I've got a couple of different types behind me here. I've got the wood ones and I've got the metal ones. The metal ones, if you're asking between the two of them which one are my favorite, the metal ones by far I love the most. The reason for that is because, one, they were free. I've got a video on that, you guys can check that out in my channel. 2, they don't have any perforations on the sides, so they don't have any weeds or anything else trying to attack them from the sides there. I can show you here. So that I do have a teeny tiny little guy, pink, growing out the side here. Those will come out in the wintertime when it freezes. But on the metal, because there is nothing there, it is totally flat. And there's no way anything can get into that. So I love these guys. They are also insulated, so it means that I can start growing in these a little bit sooner. I can grow in them a little bit later. I am here in Canada. My zone is 5B, so we do get quite cold for quite a long time. It takes a long time for it to warm up, and winter comes by fast again. So I love that they are a little bit more insulated, a little bit more protected, so we don't have to put as much effort into saving the vegetables that go into it for the winter time. And hopefully I can at least get lettuce for a little bit while longer because I love my fresh lettuce. So a lot of people also say, okay, the bed is free, but maybe the dirt inside them is not. We do have 13 acres here, so we don't have a lot of soil, but from placed projects like our pond project that we're doing behind me here, there's a lot of dirt that's extra from that, so some of that will come into the bottom part of the beds. For your deep roots, my beds are quite tall, so you don't actually need this amount of height for growing in. You only need about 18 inches for the deep-rooted plants. Makes it a lot more accessible bringing it up higher, which is really nice. It's really easy because it'll keep kids, like smaller kids, out of them, and it will also deter rabbits that can't see into them from jumping into them. I also don't have any protection around here, you can see. I have deer, I have rabbits, I've got pretty much everything you can think of coming out here in my garden. But usually they just run by, which is really great. Rabbit, I definitely have a rabbit that's living close by somewhere in this section here because I've seen him kind of dart across this time of day. When he comes out, he usually runs right across the pond after he has his snack and heads back to the orchard. The way that I kind of combat those guys and kind of deter them from being in the garden is having the larger raised beds, as well as I put a salt block at the very back of the property so that they are encouraged to stay back there. There's so much foliage, they're just not disturbed. They can do whatever bunnies and deer like to do back there and I won't bug them. However, this is my space. I've very clearly marked it out, so they shouldn't be able to, or they should be able to tell the difference, which is great. The beds are higher so that they can't see into them, so it's a little bit of a fright thing for the bunnies to stay out of our produce sections, but we do have areas like this where it does hang over quite a bit. This is my carrot bed. They're all ready to come out. I did about 2 liters of pureed carrots today for baby girl, but the rest of those, they'll be split between our various recipes and the food bank, so I'm very excited to get those out and going. But a lot of this stuff, I do dense planting that also helps keep weeds down. So you can see there's not a whole lot of anything in there that could survive because it is just so dense, but you can see how ready these carrots are to come out. Let's pull one here. See what it looks like. Yeah, man, that looks pretty good. So we'll get these carrots out of here soon enough, but not today. And these guys are ones that I planted the seeds and now I'm picking them. That's all the care that I've had to give these guys. There's my bell pepper that I picked earlier. Ready to go. That's it. That's as dirty as my hands get. These days anyway. It was a long process getting this together. Don't get me wrong, there is a big amount of investment that did go into here. You can get free beds put together. You can get free soil and compost and all that to go into it if you make your own compost, if you have friends, if you ask your local community. You can do all that at minimal cost. Just if you're on a budget, get creative, ask people. People that garden love to garden, so they typically want to share their gardening. I'm sure you guys can do like seed swaps and all that to cut down on cost. I did invest in my garden quite a bit, especially with the irrigation. So I have drip irrigation everywhere here. I've got it here. I've got it half a kilometer back there at my fruit trees. I'm going to have it over at my berry patch because I love my garden. But just this area was taking me over 2 hours a day to water multiple times a day. And that's too much. So when you're setting up your space, one thing I want you to keep in mind, and why my garden looks like this, is what is your goal? What do you want to do with it? How much time do you want to spend with it? How accessible do you need it to be for the long term? Not just today. How are you going to use it 5, 10, 15 years from now if you intend to keep it that long? For me, I want to keep this property and this garden for as long as I can. So I am going to set everything up to be able to go around with me as long as I can, which means that these beds need to be more accessible. So I can walk around with a stroller. I can walk around with a wheelchair, or I can do motorized smaller vehicles in here, stuff like that. So that we can get around and we can still get into these beds. Also great for beans. You can just pick beans right out of the side of the bed, which is great. But I also can't be spending 4 hours. I've got small kids. I've got other projects that I want to accomplish. I've got videos that I want to put out and I want to edit. So how am I going to be able to cut down on the things that are going to take up the most time that I can automate? Would I love to be out here watering all day? Absolutely. I would love to do that. I would love to be out here picking weeds and watering and all that, but I don't want it to be something that I have to do. I want it to be something that I can choose to do when I have the time to do it. Because it means that I can make things more accessible for everybody. not only here on the homestead, but for you guys out in the World Wide Web, for my local community, the rest of my family that gets to share this produce as well. So that is a win for me. It may not be a win for you guys. It may not be attainable at the moment, but it is something you can grow to include. Like a couple, let's say, I think it was $100 for 250 feet of drip line. You go to an irrigation department store, you get it all set up from them. It is like Lego, so you have to put the little bits together, get the right size pipe for the right size connections, and then it's very customizable, so it can be intimidating to get into it. But once you're into it, I promise you it'll be something that you're gonna be smacking your head like, why was I ever worried about doing this? It's so easy, and it gets everything that I need to get done for me. So all of this is on drip irrigation. It's all connected to a pump. I did have help to start it out. I am doing it on my own now. And it is all buried underneath the black fabric that you see underneath you here. This is, it isn't the 5-ounce fabric that I wanted. I misread what I bought, but I'm gonna go with it because it's what I have available at the moment. I can replace it later. I would recommend doing a 5-ounce or like a 25-year plus guarantee fabric because things will rip and tear and all that. So if you have a thicker fabric, it will last longer. So you don't have to worry about weeds on top of it. You don't have to worry about maintaining this space. So earlier this year, I did a video where it took me and my husband all day basically to maintain our landscaping. And we have a small child, so that is difficult. You're running heavier equipment and you need to get out here, and it makes the garden less accessible. So I was like, okay, that's it. Like, we need to come up with something that we can get in and out and we don't have to worry about this. So landscape fabric it was. And it looks really freaking good. Look at that contrast. It just rained too. The green, the black, that nice dark wood. Oh, it looks so good. I love being out here. The bugs are awful at the moment, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. So there we go. So we covered beds. Drip irrigation is a no watering. Landscape fabric is no weeding. There is some weeding in the beds, I will be honest, like I showed you on the side of these the wood beds. There is some weeding that happens. It's not no weeding, but I'm not spending hours out here. Also, if you get the right tool for the job, doing a bed of weeding is super easy. Dense planting is a really great way to keep down on the weeds as well. All that is beans. You're not going to get anything else except for beans in there because there's just too many beans. But you cover up the ground and you keep things rotating when you come out after everything has been picked, so I can show you kind of the different stages. So everything is ready to come out of this one. Everything has just come out of this one. It's been composted and it's been kind of laid out, so it's all ready to go for planting again. I just have to get the seeds that are in my office back out here, and then these ones down here this is just planted. So this has lettuces in it, and then back here we've got spinach and bok choy for the winter time because we're coming up on the end of our season here, unfortunately. So it is time to kind of dial it back and set it up for winter or colder crops. So I'm going to let my bell peppers and my watermelons and all that kind of come to a close. The broccoli's got to come out here soon. I can see I've got a couple more heads that I can harvest off of that as well. The beets can come out, the cabbages can probably come out. They can probably stay for a little bit longer, but they're probably done for the season. They're taking up a lot of space. So we're kind of at the point in our season here where I can plant enough to grow and harvest before winter comes, but we're also starting to dial back. The garlic's gonna come in here, and then that'll overwinter because we do hardneck garlic here. So another way to keep the weeds down is rotating our crops. I have a very big plan because I love my garden. I do spend a lot of time on it, but most of the time that I spend on it, unfortunately, isn't in the beds. It's on a spreadsheet in the wintertime, which I say unfortunately, I actually really enjoy it because it is still gardening and you get really excited about planting out your seeds and getting everything set up, which is really great because then I get out here and I'm like, I start planting seeds like 6 weeks earlier than I should. And it's a whole thing where I have to make them last longer and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure we've all been there. But everything gets a plan. So this is an herb bed this year. It won't be an herb bed next year. That has tomatoes in it. It had peas in it last year. that has carrots in it. It had lettuce in it last year. So I've got this all written down. Every bed has a name. Stick with me. You don't have to have a name. I have so many beds though. I can remember where everything is, but I want to be able to say, okay, this bed, I didn't have this bed last year, so I need to be able to fix that in my spreadsheet, that I have beans in it this year. Am I going to sequential plant it? And you can't really remember everything that goes into a bed. So this had garlic in it 2 weeks ago. So now it's got spinach, lettuce in it, sorry. And then that had onions in it. Now it's got spinach in it. This had spinach in it. Now it's got peas in it. That had lettuce in it. Now it's going to have radishes in it. That kind of stuff. So I want to be able to maintain not the one crop rotation, maybe 2 crop rotations that have gone through these beds, so that I'm keeping the right flow going. Because soil maintenance is so important. If you guys want to know how to reduce pests, reduce weeding, reduce watering, increase the health of your plants, reduce your stress, and improve how much food you're getting, rotate your crops and pick the right varieties for your area. It's really that simple. Do your research, keep an eye on what's going into your garden, when it's going into your garden. Not only you can get the more yield out of your garden if you pay attention to how long things take, when you can pull them out, what can go in next, but you can also reduce your pests. So I had tomatoes for the first time a couple years ago, and I put them in this bed here. I had tomato hornworms like crazy. So next year they ended up here. No tomato hornworms whatsoever. No repercussions on the back beds. So I've eliminated a pest, and I haven't had any hornworms yet. And I have, like, look at the size of these tomatoes. They're San Marzanos, indeterminate variety, if you're not aware, but they are as tall as I am almost. And I'm so proud I grew that one from seed. Same with over there, that guy's kind of fallen over. But they're all San Marzanos because we like to have fancy plants. Gotta have fancy pants and fancy plants out in the garden. So what is that? I've covered the beds, covered the irrigation. There's a whole lot of processes that go into this, like I said. So dense plant, rotate your crops. I don't really spray for pests. Keep it going. Keep things moving. Keep the beds covered. In the wintertime, I'm going to come in here with silage tarp. So it's going to have something over top of it as well. You can also plant a cover crop. I don't want to have to come in the springtime and pull out a cover crop in order to plant my seedlings, because the wintertime can be a little bit iffy. Like springtime, we can get a fake spring where we get 2 weeks of really hot weather, and then all of a sudden it goes back down to freezing temperatures for a while. I don't want to have to deal with that and a cover crop and pulling things out, getting stuck halfway through something and having to stop for a couple of weeks. So I'm just going to cover them with silage tarp or leftover tarp that's being recycled. And it is going to cover that, and it's going to be ready for next year. Something else that's really important that a lot of people do not do, that you should probably do at least once, test your soil. See what's going on here. You can't just throw soil into a bed and expect it's going to be the magic sauce. You have to come in and say, okay, what am I working with? What can go in here? If I've got way too much nitrogen in a bed that I'm putting a nitrogen fixer in, it's not going to do as well as if I were to put tomatoes or peppers or something that's a little bit heavier into that soil. If I can work with what I have, fix it over time, and improve what I'm doing with less work, that's a great thing that I want to do. I'm going to do that. That sounds great. Sign me up. And that's what we're trying to do. So I really do spend probably, I don't know, like I've had to it's so hard because I love being out here. But I probably, if I needed to, I could leave this garden for 2 weeks. I could come out here, I could harvest after 2 weeks what I get, and that would be it. So if you guys are interested in getting your garden started, I will leave a couple of the points here in the description down below. If you have any questions, I will post a follow-up video. This is just a general overview of what is going on out here. We're doing no weeding, no watering, no digging, no tilling, plant, harvest, gardening, back here in the True North Life homestead. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!